respected chairperson of this session, Dr. Yoga Jyotsna, office bearers of Pragna Bharati, Telangana Pranta, all the members of this august assembly, brothers and sisters. We are well aware that there are several aspects where the impact of colonization has been there for a long time. We cannot claim that at present we are free from the clutches of colonization. It has been a long process, a psychological process basically, by imposing several ideas which do not have relation with the land of this country, soil of this land. We have to see that how education can be decolonized, what can be a way ahead to have our own Bharatiya Darshan in the educational process. Because education is a matter which is very close to the heart of all. This starts from just the pre-primary stage to the research activity in a formal sense. But in an informal and non-formal sense, we find that it's a continuous process, going on continuously to shape the character of a person, going on continuously to create some impressions about self, society, family, nation, and to have a very wider approach like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We have listened to our speakers and they have said that it's a long process of about minimum 200 years. So naturally the onus is to be shouldered by the British process of thinking, particularly the Britishers. I was reading one book and they were comparing the colonization during the Mughal period and colonization during the British period. Otherwise we would not praise the Mughal period, no way. But in the Mughal period the colonization impact was very less. The colonization impact is more in the British regime. And that colonization has created impact on the social structures also. Loyalty to Britishers was a basic characteristic among the elites of our society. I am saying this because Britishers found a very favorable soil in this country to spread their colonial impact. The soil was very favorable, the soil was very soft for them. I would not like to take the names because they were very great personalities. But those great personalities used to call Britishers that you should stay here for next 50 years, 70 years. Use a phrase that is divine power, divine dispensation, that you have been sent by God. You are the Devaduts. Because of several things that impact as was created. English was one of the factors to do that, English as a language. Some liberalization or liberal approaches was also a point of attraction for people. And therefore our educational institutions, they came under the impact of this colonization. We can't have a very fixed line of demarcation that is pre-colonization, post-colonization, because it's a process. It goes on and today also it's going on. But we can say that the core part of colonization was education. For Britishers also and impact wise also we can say so. It was a core part of it. In the morning somebody said that we are talking about the ill effects of colonization, but have we made the soul searching? I agree with that soul searching is required to be made. We should do introspect it. Unfortunately our introspection gives the conclusion that our elites were wanting it. So-called leaders of our educational community were in need of it. And so the colonization, we can blame Britishers, but we cannot let our people also free from that. I remember that even after independence, I was born in 1950, that means post-independence. When I was in my school, 7th, 8th, 9th standard, I had textbooks and the lessons in the textbooks were, we were taught the reforms made by Warren Hastings, reforms made by Lord Dalhousie. And who are these Dalhousie and Warren Hastings? We should include them even after independence in our textbooks. He had started a railway train from Thane to Mumbai. That was a revolutionary thing. And then we went on praising him because of the start of the railways, what effects were there and how the trade increased. That is what they wanted. So it was sometimes a compromise with the patriotism also. It was sometimes a compromise with our self also. Pujaniya Dr. Hedgewar made the analysis of our loss of freedom for a long time, and so he used 3 phases. And these 3 phases, I am tempted to say that they are also the prey of the colonization process, that is Atma Vismruti, Samaj Vismruti, Rashtra Vismruti. We were forgetting our own self, Swa. We were forgetting it. As an impact of it, again, it was reflected in society, it was reflected in the national life as well. In 1920, Dr. Hedgewar gave a resolution to Congress of the full freedom. And not only he asked for freedom to India, to Bharat, he asked that Congress should pass a resolution to make all the states, nations which are under the clutches of the imperialist Britain and imperialist powers in the world. Colonization is because of this imperialism that wanted to rule and create the political supremacy. The main power and main hand behind the colonization is need, greed for supremacy, greed to rule for a long period. And greed to rule for a long period because you need us. You have let sit in the ruler's position. You have taken us and made sit in the ruler's chairs. And so we have been worrying about this particular situation. We have 3 principles, I would say, and with these 3 principles, how the colonization took place and how we want to decolonize it. Every society has its own philosophy. We have our own philosophy, I call it as darshan. We have our darshan, we can call it as Bharatiya darshan, Bharatiya philosophy, where integral approach is a basic part, reductionism is not there, where equality is hoped for in the society. Self-respect is there, respect to women is there, several things are there which we can call Tattvamasi, we and you are together. Our philosophy is there. In the light of the philosophy, we have our social life, that is values. Our social values are always in the light of our philosophy. And in the light of our philosophy plus our social values, our behavior is the third part of it. Bharatiya philosophy, Bharatiya Chintan, value system related to Bharatiya Chintan, and behavioral analysis of our people related to darshan and both the value system. Britishers played unfortunately with these 3 things like anything for a long period. They were not having any kind of respect towards Bharatiya philosophy. Some few authors had written some books on Mahabharata, Ramayana, that is not you may call it as some exceptions. Otherwise they were blaming this philosophy in such a way that you are broken in castes, you were never one. We came here, created the roads and communication channels, and now you are a one country. This has been written by several so-called scholars in Britain for a number of times. And this colonization, with the help of our own people, we have said that British principles are very good, British values were there, and the behavioral analysis was there that these are the God-sent people. I saw many photographs of some people which were in the textbooks, that how the Indians were there. They were wearing Indian dress, dhotis, shirt, coat, even a cap, but to show their loyalty, they used to have a tie. It was a dhoti, it was coat, it was cap, and everything was Indian. But to show the loyalty to Britishers, even their secretaries used to go to the offices with a tie on the shirt. It was a mismatch. But that mismatch indicated a sense of loyalty towards the Britishers. So it's a psychological process. Britishers had not passed the rule that you should come to the office with a tie, necktie. But it was a competition to show the loyalty. And to show that loyalty, several things were there, just they were seen, they were visible in the social behavior of the people. Justice Ranade, who was a great patriot and he was a basic Indian thinker, had appealed people of Britain that do not impose your philosophy on this society. He had written it in several books. History of the Maratha Power, which is a very famous book written by Justice Ranade, he writes there in the introduction to that book, preface. And he writes that Britishers should not impose, and there he has said that every country, every nation has its own. Justice Ranade was known as a relativist. Why? Because he said that it's a relativity. Every country has its own. Like Rabindranath Tagore used to say that every country has its own question paper. There was a very famous statement of Rabindranath Tagore that every nation has its own question paper. Do not give India's question paper to France and do not give the French paper to Germany because of its own peculiar characteristic. Our own peculiar characteristic is spiritual mentality. And there only Justice Ranade and Namdar Gokhale had said that spiritualize politics, spiritualize education, spiritualize economy. What is the Indian content of spiritualization? The Indian content of spiritualization is there that there will be a sense of consumption and at the same time there will be a sense of sacrifice also, yajna. That was the basic philosophy that spiritualized it. Britishers made it more and more material. And it was a conflict between the materialism which was very attractive and a spiritualization which is basic. And that materialism was very attractive and therefore, as I said, that facilities, amenities, they were made by the Britishers and we came under that impact that it is so. Gradually, many things came in the existence. How the minds are colonialized and thinking goes in one way only. I am a student of economics. I was in my first, that was pre-degree economics, studying commerce and studying the economics papers as well. What was the definition given by my teachers and my textbooks of economics? And the same definition is being taught now also after 70 years of independence and after 100 years of colonization process. Economics is a science of meeting two ends together, unlimited wants and limited means. Why unlimited wants? Here only the British philosophy gets reflected. And the British philosophy is there that when unlimited wants are there, because the whole economics is depending on competition. Pratiyogita, spardha. And so the life is full of competition and you have to compete to succeed. And then the theory of the survival of the fittest was created in the society, that if you want to survive, be the fit, be the fitter and be the fittest. Humanism, welfare economics, resources to be distributed for equality, maximum production, equitable distribution, limited consumption. All these our darshan matters, our philosophy matters were wound up. Were not at all given a place in the thinking process. And when it hasn't a place in the thinking process, it's reflected in textbooks, it is reflected in teaching pedagogy. Not only the process was there, but the content was also vitiated. But we are really so unfortunate that even after independence, we didn't try, or we tried a very little to rectify it, to improvise it. In our country also, the liberation movements was started. Because Britishers had shown that society is permissive. Personal liberty was their crux of the matter. In our philosophy there is personal liberty, no doubt, everybody is free. But that personal liberty was made exaggerated in such a way that individualism was created more and social approach was on the back burner. Individualism, you are individual, your individual freedom, don't let anybody compromise it. We were having individual freedom, nobody had to teach individual freedom to Indian people, and unfortunately that is reflected in our constitution also in some extent. And so the colonization is steps of a thief. In Marathi it is called Chor Pavla. When a thief enters in a home, he never makes a noise of his foot. Takes care of that our feet doesn't make any noise. I was tempted to use the word slow poisoning, but that would be more than the scale, so I avoided it. But it is so. And so the women liberation movement in our country also attracted us for a long period. Family system is our part of darshan, our philosophy. And when family system is the unique USP, if anybody asks what is the USP of Hindustan, so we can say our family system, that is the unique system. And not only that, we see the family in society and we see the family in the nation also. Yat pinde tat brahmande. What is there in the family those who are not the mothers and fathers by blood, but they are called as mothers and fathers. Those who are not the brothers and sisters by blood, but call it the brothers and sisters. Swamiji, when said on 11 September in Chicago address, brothers and sisters, all Americans had given their standing ovation and clapping for 4 or 5 minutes, because the idea itself was very new to them. The philosophy itself was very new to him. Now we want to keep it intact, but there were some attacks made on the family system also. Some of our very great women writers praised Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan was a leader in the American movement of women liberation. She had written a book which is called Mystic of Feminism. And she had written in that book that women are free. Do not get yourself involved in this marriage. Marriage is creating a unnecessary bondage. And there was a wave in America, as she writes in the Second Stage book. The second book is named as Second Stage. She writes that your personal liberty is more important. You can have or you can live without marriages also. You have your own personality. Everything was written in an extreme way. Fortunately, because of our basic values, it was not taken as it is from America in our country. But after the movement of 10-15 years, some young girls went to Betty Friedan and said that you were married, you have enjoyed all your married life. We came in the pressure of your philosophy, we came to follow your philosophy. Now we realize that we have lost the real enjoyment of our life, which is in the family system. After realizing all this and giving a sense of confession, Betty Friedan wrote the second book, which is called Second Stage. And in the Second Stage, Betty Friedan says, Americans, please excuse me, I apologize. I should not have written this. But in the meantime, some reflections had come in the Indian society. And in the meantime, when these reflections had come, our educational institutions became very worried about it. And so colonization comes with a very low speed, inadvertently. One may not feel it directly, but it comes in this particular process. Prasanna had dealt with the concept of globalization. I would like to extend it a bit. That globalization and the process of colonization are the cousin brothers. And that colonization is also an impact of that globalization, or say on both the sides. This colonization comes there, and I am a student of WTO, World Trade Organization. There were investments and other things, okay, we could accept it to some extent. But now, all these Westerners are insisting on intellectual property rights. Core point for the globalization process is intellectual property. That means our mental power, our researches, our patents, our inventions. So that globalization is not Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That globalization is not the appeal made by Swami Vivekananda to the world. Neither that is which was a response of Mani Dattopanta Tringdi to workers of the world unite. Dattopanta used to say that workers of the world unite the world. That was the slogan. The slogan was a response to that workers of the world unite was the call by Marx. But replying to that call in the Indian context, Dattopanta said that workers of the world unite and unite the world. This is our approach. And because of that approach, we find this globalization leading towards the intellectual property rights. We have to be very cautious. Swadeshi movement has to be very cautious, because this is being taught in the colleges. This is being taught and this is being fed in the brains of the youngsters. And so the free trade in our country is admired in a section of the people in such a way that that was the thing only for the betterment of the society. We had no option other than the free trade. We had no option other than the globalized economy. As Prasanna Deshpande put a theory, here we are the weakers, and deconstruction is there, that to take the side of the weakers and then revert the position, but the position will not be reverted in terms of Swadeshi by leftist. It will not be reverted in terms of our basic education was the concepts of Swami Vivekananda, the man making, character building, assimilation of ideas, development of mind, expansion of intellect, ability to stand on its own feet. This is our real education. There were several experiments made by Yogi Arvinda. When he was in Pondicherry, he had run a school of 300 people where the professional and business and occupational and vocational, every training was there. Rabindranath Tagore experimented it. And that experiment was converted into a process of the Shanti Niketan, which is the world famous, and it was Rabindranath Tagore had never gone to school. His father took him to England for his higher studies, but he didn't go to the college. He came back, started one Vishwa Bharati Shanti Niketan, and now we find that Shanti Niketan became a trendsetter in our philosophy of education. It's a trend, a new way. Where has it gone? Mahatma Gandhi made the experiments of Nai Talim, and that Nai Talim was there, that while getting the formal education, get the education to turn your hands with some work, to increase your efficiency, to develop the work culture, Sharma Pratishtha. All these things in a utilitarian approach of Britishers towards education have lapsed. I would like to make two terms and the distinction of these two terms. Britishers introduced utilitarian. Education is for utility, and ours is the man-making approach. Okay, utility is there. I got my degree, I got a job, I became a teacher, I got my Yogaksham, and I am sacrificing it to the society to whatever extent. Okay, that is all right. But this utilitarian approach was there, that who were there for the Britishers were produced more, and for that several trains were developed. I would say that governmentalization of education is the most unfortunate gift of Britishers for colonization process. Dharmapal never said that compromise with your autonomy. Okay, we can develop a syllabus because all children at all the states and in languages are same. Okay, so some mathematics, some arithmetic, some language, something every there. But there are some local wisdom things. But all are there and treated on par. Britishers started the education process in such a way that does not speak of homogeneity, that speaks of uniformity. And uniformity is that making all equal of each other. Like the idols of Ganesh in our Ganeshotsav are put in a set thing. So all faces are similar, all measurements are similar, all colors are similar. Nothing is there. This is not our. We find the diversities, and we find that the diversities, though they are there, there is no compromise with the integral activity. Governmentalization, that government will take care of your education, and there we lost the autonomy. Before that we were autonomous. Dharmapal writes, I come from one district and I was very eager to see the statistics that Dharmapal gives. In one tehsil there were 1150 schools and co-education was also there. This is the position before 250 years. Britishers should not teach us. But they started governmentalizing process and uniformity came. Because of some other things, the scale of girls' education went down. That is there. And so the colonization in a planned and conspicuous manner, very conspicuously the colonization process is there. How to define colonization is a different matter. It's a psychology, and gradually we go on saying that this is the right thing. Everybody is quoting Macaulay, and one of our colleagues said that don't quote it further. But I am giving a difference there. So Macaulay has said that we will give this country in some hands of your people, but whom we will give? Macaulay says we will give it to those people who will be grateful to us for the whole life and who will execute our ideas as of their own ideas. That was Macaulay's thinking. Okay, we are giving you freedom, now we are going. For what reason, that apart, but we are going now, but we are going and giving it in your hands of those people who will carry our motives and mottos and our all objectives further. Max Weber had said that we have conquered this country once, the next conquest will be through culture. There only Max Weber said that this is the hardest weapon to cut, very hardest, we cannot cut it. And that culture speaks of our Bharatiya Darshan. Swami Vivekananda had said that language speaks of culture. Language denotes culture. And that language speaks of the culture of those people because their words, their meanings, their vocabulary, their dictionary, everything is there. And there only Swamiji said that, for example, take the word exclusion. Inclusion, exclusion. Take the word exclusion and give me the meaning of the word of exclusion in any Indian language which would be the similar. Because in Indian philosophy there is no exclusion of anybody, no bahishkar. We are all inclusive, we are all assimilative. Why don't we give this kind of education, but we are following the same languages? We have been insisting on it that up to primary level education should be given in either the Indian language or mother tongue, which is a very, very formative age of a child. Whenever I travel, on many occasions I find it that a young couple with 4 or 5 years daughter or son, they are sitting there in front of me till that boy or girl goes asleep, they talk with him in English. And once he sleeps, their talking between them is in their own language. I asked that why you were speaking in English so far. नहीं अभी वो सो गया है. Is it the reason that अभी वो सो गया है? So this mentality, they don't know whether it is colonization, decolonization, how is it called, how can it be defined, that apart. But this is a very, very slow thing goes in the minds of it. How these people will be able to read in Marathi Dhaneshwari, Dasabodh, Eknathi Bhagavad. Where will they know it? The treasure of the world, which is saturated, stored in our country by our forefathers, for years together and generations together, they have been taking care of it and preserving it like anything. Where are we going to gain it again? And that is there, that this colonization has created this kind of effect in our society. And therefore I say that language speaks of culture. Mahatma Gandhi, on the next day after independence, maybe next day means maybe next week, he said that send a message to all people that Gandhi doesn't know English. Gandhi Hindi janta nahi, sabko bataiye. That was his statement. Till the last week he was negotiating with Britishers in English. That doesn't mean that he didn't have a fluency in it. He was a very good English speaker. But once the country was freed and independence was there, the first thing Gandhiji said to the public that दुनिया को बता दो गांधी हिंदी अंग्रेजी जानता नहीं. Could we inculcate this spirit in our young generations? It's not hating English. English as a language one should learn. Why English only? Many other languages we can do that. But the effect in the educational activity, that is to be the main part of all these things, and therefore we have lost the autonomy to educational institutions. We have lost our autonomy. Who decides our syllabus? Somewhere at the central mechanism. No, that is our habit. We can't get rid of it. Our teachers wait for the syllabus. अरे अभी सिखाना क्यों नहीं शुरू किया? नहीं, we are waiting for syllabus to come from NCERT, from CBSE. Okay, some part may be there. Following of by, it's a sanskar. By a student, by a guru, it's a sanskar. It's not only gaining the knowledge or information. And that sanskar is having some local references, having some local wisdom, having some local heritage, having some history also. We have to revamp it, we have to rejuvenate it, reorganize all these things. And so the origin of the colonization was there in establishing and not losing in any way the political supremacy. And that political supremacy now gone in a formal way, but thinking process is not came out from all these things. One more thing I would like to say about the Dharmapal's analysis of our Indian education. In a beautiful tree, Dharmapal has said three things which I remember very clearly. One thing is there, Dharmapal says that our schools should become the social awareness centers. समाज में जागृति करने के केंद्र बने. Number one. Number two, our teachers should be the social servants. And number three, our pupils should be the having some sense of model in the form of a teacher before them. This is possible only if the autonomy of teaching is maintained. And decolonization is there, that to give autonomy to teachers. Decolonization were there then when we re-establish our swa. Decolonization will be there where we reorganize the contents of education, we reorganize the process of education, we reorganize the pedagogy of education, we reorganize the examination system. There should be one single point in the light of which all these things must be undertaken. Because now the gross enrollment ratio This is latest reference. This does not apply to the philosophy of decolonization much, but very fortunate picture is arising in our country that more than 95% of the children are coming to schools. We did not imagine it even some 10-15 years before. Maybe the impact of this Right to Education Act, or maybe the impact of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, or whatever it may be, but it's a very, very pleasure to see that in a small village also a mother is taking to her finger a child and taking him to the school. बहुत ही रम्य चित्र है वो. Now the challenge arises that they are coming to schools, they will be coming to secondary schools, they will be coming to the colleges, and what about the system? On the one hand, the gross enrollment ratio is going to increase tremendously, not imagined before, unimaginable, and the challenge lies before us in a new form. Utilitarian approach is still there, and therefore the careerism has come up. Kothari Commission, which gets reflection of Gandhian thoughts to a greater extent, has said, with underlining it, that de-link degrees with jobs. When anybody, a common man, reads it, he gets puzzled. That what does he mean, de-link degrees with jobs? Because we have made our education so job-oriented, that is money-oriented in a different way. Money is essential, no doubt. संपन्नता के शत्रु नहीं है हम. There should be wealthiness, there should be neatness, there should be no poverty. But such type of education we are imparting in a large scale that technology is creating a substitute to the social sciences, and all social sciences are without the student. I know, because I have been in this field for 40 years. We don't get students for psychology, we don't get students for sociology, political science, to some extent economics, to logic, to music, to Sanskrit. Doesn't our society need it? Because of the utilitarian approach being imitated for a long time, the impression is there that education for money making. And money making doesn't, I don't find anything bad in it, but money making creates competition. Competition creates divisibility. Divisibility creates one versus another. And then comes several issues. This is a longer effect of colonization. We need it, but we have exaggerated it in such a way that now the problem, the nature of the problem has changed. Kothari Commission had said that our educational planning should be in such a way that you should produce not 2% more than the requirement, that's all. If you require 100 doctors, produce only 102 doctors. If you require 100 engineers, produce only 102. If you require 100 teachers, produce. Why 2% more? Otherwise competition will be there, and the whole life, social life will get some problematic sense. So that diversion will also be there. Of course, this is a thinking right there. I don't want to connect it with the colonization for all the logical sense. The last point I would make, and I would stop. Okay, these are our problems. And decolonization is important because this I was talking to Sanand Bapat that you have dealt with this Aryan invasion issue in such a length and very factual and very researched way. But what is the impact now? Impact is there that Aryans came to India, they pushed the Dravids in jungles. And those who live there, they are the tribes, they are the jungles, and they are the Moola Nivasi. They are the aboriginal. How it reflected some 5 years before? There was the International Conference of Races of the World. Our own people, some of them who call themselves Moola Nivasi, went to Durban where the conference was held. Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, sitting inside the conference, and outside the conference, that convention hall, our own people were agitating with the placards that declare as a race because we are those who were pushed into jungles. What is the effect of it? Such a far-reaching effect. We could not have imagined it some 50 years before or 100 years before. But now we find this far-reaching effect that diversity came as divisibility. We put the philosophy of unity in diversity. Now there is divisibility. How the unity is expected? You may call them Dalit, you may call them tribes, you may call them neglected, you may call them Upekshita, Vanchita, everything. We have full affinity towards them. Nobody can challenge our affinity towards them. But this is the issue, this is the problem. And for those theories that the Britishers tried to put emphatically, like this Aryan invasion, far-reaching effects are there. And therefore decolonization is to be taken in a very planned manner. Schools must be revamped. And so, coming to my last point, I would say that what we expect. Indianization of education, first of all. Get all the Bharatiya philosophy and see it. It's never late. It's never late for good things. Value systems to be re-established. Dissemination of our ancient knowledge and science in an effective way. Creating a sense of belonging and pride of history among our youngsters. Improvement of pedagogy which will create curiosity, kutuhal, and which will create something like the scope to the intellectual capacity of pupils. Local structure, local heritage, local things must be included in our education. Autonomy so far as the content matter is concerned, and holistic approach to education where we can expect that decolonization will be considered as the core of it, as the crux of it. With these words, I conclude my speech with great thanks to all of you. Thank you.